This one looks more like a traditional windsock. So it's got a large opening at the front and a narrow one at the back and a few tails. Now this does fly quite nicely. It allows a lot of air in at the front and it puffs up. So it's actually inflated to a degree. So we could put, it does actually need more tails in order to fly better. But basically that just requires you to cut a simple shape. I've roughly cut the kite ripstop down to a largish rectangle. I haven't trimmed off the bottom, there's no need to do that if it's just going to run out to a tube. So now what we need to do is to work out the circumference. Now I have marked this, so basically it's a mark on the tube, roll it round, line it up and mark it again. Now to this we need to add a couple of millimetres just to allow a bit of flexibility. So I've add a couple of millimetres plus 10. So if we add 12, 13 millimetres, about there, that should give us plenty of overlap. So you can test that. It's quite simple to run it round just to make sure that you've got an overlap. So we run it all the way around and yeah, we've got plenty of overlap for our kite. Transfer that to the top edge. That will give us an idea of where we're going, and now we can mark this out. Top and bottom, mostly the bottom. So we line this up. Again, this piece, the offcut can be used for tails. Put that to one side. So now we've got a sort of a rectangle which will wrap around the tube. We now need to actually make that slightly narrower at this end. 155 is approximately right. And then if we just bring this in slightly, let's bring it into 90 each side. This is an experiment, and 180 on this side. If we now cut through from the corners, so now we have an interesting shape. So we need to now match these up on a tube. It's only the top of the tube that we're actually going to match it to. So what we need to do is to put a piece of it across the top. Assembling this shape windsock is slightly different in the fact that we can't actually just wrap it around a tube. We could wrap it around the top of a tube to get this piece right, but we can't further down. So basically we just need to put a piece of tape along one edge, and then we can actually turn it over and attach it flat, but it should still give us the correct size. Right, we've got our tape on. The next bit is to tape it together. So if we just turn it over, fold this in half initially, keeping our top edge aligned, if we can, it does help. We're going to pull this and then we're going to line this one up on the other side once we've taken the tape off. So that's the process, fairly straightforward. This can then be cut into, if it needs cutting, which it probably doesn't. So there we go with that piece. That should stop it moving around. It's going to be quite a fiddle. You've got to carefully line it up. I'm moving this around slightly so I can match the edges. Slight overlap so that you don't have any tape sticking out. Press it down lightly as you go, just in case you have to peel it back off. And just work your way through until you get it off. It does come off. This actually works much better in cold weather, and this studio is cold. In the summer, this tape can be very sticky. So now I've run that down, I've got a little bit to cut off there, so I'll use my roller to roll this down, just to make sure we've got tape off. So now we've actually got a conical shape. Now we're going to cut a piece of the strapping tape and put that right round the edge. In order to strengthen the front, I've inserted a piece of the tube which was cut down. So I have one here. They're quite good. You can actually make quite nice disc lanterns with those themselves, but I've pushed this in. It can be a little bit tricky, so it does need slightly holding. Actually, just at the top edge, tack it in so that it doesn't slip off. Okay, so that's sort of in. I can now put some tape around it, which will strengthen it straight away, and then I can add the other tape. So basically, I'm going to run a ring of tape around what is in fact a big cardboard washer. You have to be careful because it can still slip out. And in fact, the first few attempts to do this morning, it slipped out. So we've now got that round, so I can now press it on all the way around. So there we've got that. Now I'm going to have to peel this off, again fiddly. Remember, when you're doing this first part, it's just to peel it back slightly so you can overlap this piece of tape onto it, as it's almost impossible to do afterwards. So we peel that round. We take our strip of tape, again starting somewhere other than that join, and we just carefully run it round. In fact, I'm actually going to do it the opposite side to the join on the kite. Cut a piece off, add it. Only needs to be 50mm long or so. Place this on top of the white tape and press it in firmly. This is the principal join for this strengthener. So once that's done, we can peel off the, if we can get it off. So this is always my least favourite part of the job. Take that out and then just run this through and cut it off where the tape starts. So now we should, all being well, be able to take off the inside tapes. They should just pull off with a little bit of care. And we can take out the disc. There we are. We now have a flexible but quite strong opening for the front of our windsock. So these could actually be taped over, they could be cut off or even folded back and taped in place, and that might be quite a nice idea because we're going to have to put another piece of decorative tape round there, so we could put tape round here and then fold it back. In fact, I'll do that because it's quite an interesting idea. It's not something I've done before. So we'll just put another piece round here. It'll overlap slightly, and then for the remainder we can just get another ring of tape, fit that, and then add some ripstop to it. Oh, that went well. Press that on. Just pull this round. And then we can, with a bit of fiddling, just fold those over. They won't produce a beautiful tidy edge. We've now got a seam for that. I've got a blue one here which will do. That's 11mm or so. And then if I can just, because the tape is still on, I can just place this tape on, run this around the edge. You could put an extra ring of tape on if you wished, but this might well hold, and say for this demo it's fine. It just gives you the idea of how this might go. And there we have a join. So again, cut this off. This bit doesn't actually need much of an overlap. It might want to be slightly tidier than that, but so we now have a windsock. It's got an opening which is held open and overlap seamed, which is quite good. Let's just makes a change. And that's it. Now that piece of fabric could quite easily be a pattern. So you could make a sheet up first, rings, bands, diagonals, whatever, and then cut it to this shape and fit it. This hasn't got a great deal of strength, which because there's no additional taping. As soon as you start to put a pattern together, then you've got much more rigid fabric which you can work with. This will be light, so it should fly quite easily. But that'll do for that piece. We've just got to attach some cords, and then that's it, fly. So all I've done is to cut into the end of the cone, and we'll see how that flies. Yeah, that's immediately more stable. Slightly less jittery, and the airflow is quite disruptive, but it does actually work. So adding more to the end of those might actually improve it. That's actually working quite nicely, I think. So yeah, that's quite a good place to start. And you literally just cut into the ends of the conical shape, and it does stabilise it. So that's actually quite good.